Hey, welcome back. If you're no stranger around these parts, you may be asking yourself, where the hell have you been? Well, I've been here, there, everywhere, watching a lot, reading a lot, crying a lot, laughing a lot, sitting with the weird and wonderful worlds that I feel like escaping into for a few hours, whether it be movies, music, television, comics, wrestling, whatever. And you know what I've concluded? Is that there's still so much great art being created today. Like right now. You really don't have to go far for it. The magic is still here. But I think we've gotten worse at appreciating it. See, because in the late stage internet era we're currently living in, art and noise are barely distinguishable. Rather than experiencing it, it gets processed, ranked, monetized, reviewed, compared, turned into discourse, a headline, a box office report, a culture war, a Rotten Tomatoes score, a hot take that they don't even believe in half the time. And somewhere in all that, we lost something. The feeling. Okay, so maybe not you and me per se, because chances are if you clicked on this video, you're someone who believes in what I believe, that art is not just content, it's as important to you as breathing, and that's said without hyperbole. Art is how some of us learn to understand the world, and if we're being honest, it's how some of us learn to understand ourselves. And so today I want to talk about critics, not because criticism is bad, not because every negative review is wrong, and not because audiences are always right, but because I want to ask a simple question. When did so many of the people paid to talk about art stop sounding like they loved it? But before we get into where criticism went wrong, I think it's important to ask a more basic question. What is a critic actually supposed to be? I think a lot of us started treating critics like they're supposed to be the final bosses of culture and taste that tell us whether or not we're allowed to enjoy things. But that's not what criticism is supposed to be. At its best, a critic is not a cop. A critic is a translator, a guide, a friend who takes the feeling you had while watching a movie, listening to an album, etc., and gives that feeling words. A great critic doesn't just say this was good, this was bad. They ask better questions. What was this trying to be? Did it succeed on its own terms? What perspective is it speaking to? What does it understand about people? What does it misunderstand? What about my life did it resonate with? Remember that scene from Celine's song's Past Lives where we see the main character go back and forth between translating Korean to her American boyfriend and vice versa? That to me is the role of criticism, to deepen your understanding, not replace it. The goal of criticism itself has changed. It's no longer what is my understanding of this piece of art and how do I express it? Now it's how can I turn this piece of art into a take that benefits me? And once that becomes the incentive, criticism starts developing some really ugly habits. Look, critics should challenge art. Critics should challenge audiences. They should be able to point out what didn't work, what was lazy, or that this was trying to say something but didn't have the craft to actually say it well. The problem is when criticism stops feeling like an honest response to the art and starts feeling like someone singing for their dinner, only using the art as a canvas to create their own performance. The first version of this is the critic who arrives with the argument already loaded, and man, agenda-pushing, narrative-peddling con artists are a dime a dozen nowadays. You see it with political parties and online tribes from every direction bending the art until it supports whatever argument they were already trying to make. And it's just incredibly frustrating because good criticism should reveal the work in a new light. Bad criticism just reveals the critic's preferred argument. We saw this with the reaction to James Gunn's Superman, where the simple idea of Superman as an immigrant, which is not exactly a radical reinvention of the character considering the man was literally sent away from a dying planet and raised in Kansas, somehow became proof that Hollywood had gone woke, as if kindness, immigration, and chosen identity haven't been integral to the character from the beginning. Similarly, you saw with Barbie, where a bright pink satire about gender, identity, and capitalism got flattened into anti-men propaganda. You saw with Beyonce's Cowboy Carter, where a project directly engaging with country music, black musical history, and the roots of Americana got reduced to, hey, is Beyonce even allowed to be here? And at a certain point, I have to ask whether we're talking about the art at all or just feeding into some mass psyop experiment to make everyone else a little bit more miserable all the time. And sometimes the agenda isn't even political. Sometimes it's aesthetic. Sometimes a critic walks into the work wanting one kind of depth, one kind of tone, one kind of seriousness, and then punishes the art for not being something it was never trying to be. Take Pitchfork's review of An Evening with Silk Sonic, a project that travels back in time to the rhythm and blues of the 70s and recontextualizes it for the modern day. Now, in fairness, this is not a review where the critic doesn't understand the musical references. He clearly does. He clocks the Motown influence, the Philly soul influence, Gamble and Huff, the period-specific instrumentation, the old-school recording approach, all of that. But there's this moment in the review in which he rated the album 6.4. A 6.4, where he talks about Put On a Smile, which is the album's big emotional ballad. And he basically says that this is where the project gets as emotionally deep as it's willing to go, only to criticize the fact that it's immediately followed by 777, this big Vegas party record, calling that transition and the project as a whole soulless. I get the point. If you want An Evening with Silk Sonic to become a more vulnerable, emotionally naked, and complicated album, then yeah, 777 coming right after Put On a Smile might feel like the album is running away from its own sincerity. But that's also kind of the joke. That's the character, that's the masculinity of the album. These are two dudes in velvet suits crying and consoling each other for one song, then immediately throwing dice in Vegas like fuck it we ball to try to suppress their emotions. And the comedy comes from the fact that these two dudes cannot sit still in vulnerability for too long. That's why criticizing 777 for breaking the sincerity of Put On a Smile feels like criticizing the album for being exactly what it told you it was. To drive this point home, the review's final words tell the whole story. Could they have made a weirder, more surprising version of this record? Absolutely. But as they've insisted from the start, it's not that deep. En route to rating it again, a 6.4. A 6.4. And no, An Evening with Silk Sonic is not some tortured meditation on the architecture of the human soul. But I'd argue it does have depth in its execution, in the creative choices used to express Bruno and Anderson's inner world, their inspirations, their influences, in what it understands about a kind of masculinity that hides a heartbreak behind a velvet curtain of shenanigans, sweet talk, bravado, and cologne. And if criticism can only recognize depth when art is dark, tortured, complicated, or self-serious, then maybe the problem isn't that the art is shallow. Maybe the critic is only looking for depth in one direction. If you're criticizing a fish for not climbing a tree, you're not really engaging with the fish. You're just mad it's not a squirrel. That brings me to a related problem. When critics don't seem to understand the reference points that inspired the piece, or even worse, when they understand the references technically, but not how the work chooses to engage with them. And truth be told, this one really bothers me because art is always in conversation with other art.
One thing I love about film is the dialogue between artists, and not only between each other, with Michel Legrand tying them together in so many ways, but if you look at Umbrellas of Cherbourg and you look at Do the Right Thing, you see artists in dialogue, so French New Wave is coming in the bag.
Jackie Chan box set, you know what I'm saying?
Movies are talking to the movies that inspired them. Albums are talking to genres. Wrestling is talking to decades of mythology, archetypes, history, and theater. And if you don't understand the language the art is speaking, then I got two words for you.
Suck it!
No, I'm joking. You're not really reviewing the art, you're just being ignorant, dude. For this one, I have quite a few examples. Look no further than the masterpiece that is the Wachowski Speed Racer, a loving translation of anime logic to live action that contained endless sauce. A movie that was reduced at the time to visual chaos even though the chaos was the language. Or Jennifer's Body, a movie dismissed as the very same sex object horror film that was actually trying to satirize, mutate, and bite back against. Or Disco being dismissed as shallow or serious, while missing how much of it was rooted in Black, Latino, queer, and working class nightlife. But sometimes the problem is not misunderstanding. Sometimes the problem is just simpler and uglier. The take was made to be passed around, to travel. It's a review that doesn't really have much to say other than to stir up noise. It's a rage bait, if you will. And we all know what this looks like, what this feels like. Oh, this movie proves the franchise is dead. Oh, this really, really good artistic album unfortunately flopped. This beloved thing was never good. And sure, maybe sometimes the take is sincere, but a lot of the time it's just kerosene. Unfortunately, the internet rewards the line that makes people angry enough to share it. It rewards the score that looks wild out of context. And when criticism starts chasing engagement more than insight, we start training the audience to engage more with the review and the discussion and culture war about a thing, rather than the actual thing. The take becomes the product, which brings me to maybe the thing that depresses me the most in this late stage capitalist world is how often modern art coverage talks about creativity like it's a quarterly earnings report. Box office, streaming numbers, opening weekend, budget, second week drop, awards momentum, brand damage, Rotten Tomatoes score, critical score, and look, I get it. The business side matters. Art does not exist in a vacuum. Movies cost money, albums need marketing, shows get renewed or canceled, wrestling companies need gates, ratings, and pay-per-views buys. I'm not pretending the industry side is irrelevant. I'd even go as far as to say it's a pretty fascinating lens to observe from. But when financial performance becomes the main language we use to discuss art to determine whether something is a success, something deeply weird happens. Because some of the most meaningful pieces of art in your life may not have been cultural events. Sometimes the thing that changes you is small. Sometimes it fails commercially and gets misunderstood in its time and only makes sense years later when the world finally catches up to what it was doing. So when reviews and trades emphasize success or failure over creativity, the more we talk about art like shareholders, the farther we get from the human stuff in terms of what we liked, what we didn't like, what memories it pulled out of us, what part of our lives it touched, the less it feels like we're talking to people at all. And that speaks to the bigger issue here that I wanted to discuss in this first video back from this hiatus, this burnout, is that as easy it is to blame the critics, I don't think this happened because every critic suddenly decided to hate art. It was the ecosystem that changed. I don't know about you, but it is genuinely concerning how much weight a Rotten Tomatoes score has. I get why it's useful. Tickets are expensive. The economy sucks. There's too much to watch, too much to hear, too much to read, and not enough time. And it's nice having something that tells you consensus. The one thing it cannot tell you is what this movie might mean to you. How it might tell a story that speaks to something that made you feel so alone or misunderstood. So if there's anything I want to leave you with, it's not me telling you to stop reading reviews. Read them, argue with them, learn from the good ones, let great criticism deepen your relationship with art. But don't let the discourse get to the feeling before you do. Don't let the score replace the experience. Don't let the loudest person in the room convince you that your reaction is embarrassing, naive, or wrong. Let this be the year that art surprises you before the internet explains it away. Let yourself love something absurd, incredibly niche, and emotionally specific to you. Let yourself watch more, read more, feel more.